Hey guys, it's the video you've all been waiting for. I'm finally doing an AP Art portfolio review now that scores are out. I will be perfectly clear, I did not get a score that I hoped that I would get, but to be honest, I'm not really that upset about it. I got a 3, which according to College Board is an equivalent of like a C and a C+. I'm going to break this video up into 4 sections. The first is going to talk about the written evidence, the second is going to be showing the quality section, third is my whole investigation, and fourth is discussing where things may have gone wrong. But yeah, without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so today's the next day, and I forgot to mention that for whatever reason, when I try and log back into College Board, it just won't show me like the portfolio I submitted. I don't know if like anyone else is experiencing this, but like anytime I try and look at the portfolio I submitted, the only thing I can see is the score, which is kind of unfortunate because I was going to read the written evidence that I submitted versus the one that I wanted to submit, but I guess I'll just read off the written evidence that I had typed up before having to cut everything down. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, the written evidence consists of 2 questions that you're answering to College Board. The first question is asking essentially the inquiry, the question, or the overall theme that guided your sustained investigation. The second question is asking how your work demonstrates evidence of practice, experimentation, and revision. For some godforsaken reason this year, College Board decided to change the format of the written evidence. It used to be that you got 1,200 characters and 1 space to answer both questions, and the nice thing about it was that you could rearrange it however you wanted it, so you could put a little more sentences in one paragraph and not the other, and vice versa. This year, they divided the section into 2 blanks, where you get 600 characters to answer each question. The reason why this was frustrating to me was because I felt that I needed more space to talk about what exactly my portfolio was about, whereas I felt that the practice, experimentation, and revision would show for itself in the portfolio. Another issue with this is that characters means it includes spaces and periods. It's not 600 words, it's 600 characters, which means you only get like 3 sentences to explain each question. But anyway, here is my written evidence. Constructing my pieces, I focused on the art of origami to communicate the thoughts I cannot express in words. The rendering of simple objects has always intrigued me because of the visually appealing way they pop off the canvas. I portrayed the beauty and complexity of an otherwise ordinary piece by creating art and telling life experiences based on objects that are considered art forms themselves. While I've struggled with self-disclosure, I've always been able to easily explain my ideas behind my art, even if a message was not initially intended. My sustained investigation dives into my conscious mind to reveal personal thoughts I would not have revealed until now. My work embodies personal experiences, flaws I recognize in myself, and fears that I have for the future as I navigate my way through my mental health this year. Developing this portfolio, I utilized acrylic paint because I'm technically strong in that medium and it would yield the best results for the vision I had in mind. While I'm proficient in acrylic paint, my investigation allowed me to revise how I approached my work through my experimentation with unfamiliar media, as seen in pieces 3, 6, 13, 14, and 15. Additionally, I experimented with many sizes, shapes, and types of surfaces to create my work, as seen in pieces 4, 13 through 15. While minor revisions were made to every piece concluding this portfolio, revisions were most significant in the detail shots 2 and 9. But before we dive into my portfolio, I'm just going to show you my quality pieces of my portfolio. So how College Board sets it up is that 15 images include your sustained investigation part of the portfolio, which is essentially what your theme is. And then the quality section is 5 different completed works where you think is of the highest quality. Now, note the difference of what I just said between the 2 different parts of the portfolio. In the quality section, you must have 5 completely different finished pieces of work, whereas in the sustained investigation, you just need 15 images. That means that you don't have to have 15 pieces of art per se, because you could do detail shots, other shots that show experimentation and revision. It just needs to be 15 images. So for the quality section, you're going to notice that I'm only going to show 4 pieces, and the reason why is how College Board is set up is that if you feel that one piece from your investigation portion is of really high quality, you can put one of those pieces in the quality section as well. But just because the quality section is a part of your portfolio, it does not mean that it has to be related to your sustained investigation. It can if you want it to be, but the point of it really is to see how you excel outside of the theme that you chose. When the 5th quality piece does show up in the sustained investigation part of this video, I will note so you know that which picture I chose to put in the quality section as well. Okay, I didn't talk about any other pieces in the quality section, but I'm going to talk about this one just because I actually had a written artist statement about it. I was actually making this piece for a scholarship, something with like ocean pollutions. I forgot what the prompt was, but basically I used this for a scholarship, and because I literally had nothing else to put into the portfolio, I put this in here. So I'm just going to talk about it. This piece is titled Currents, and it symbolizes not only what the hawksbill turtle utilizes in its daily life, but also represents the means that it could end its precious life. Ocean currents not only assist in the migrations of sea life, but sadly are responsible for spreading pollution that impacts those lives. Using an acrylic pour medium, I chose colors that suggest the varied temperature or depths of ocean water. The metallic gold gives the appearance of crude oil, and oil spills in the oceans have catastrophic and long-lasting results, with nature's currents unintentionally spreading the contaminants worldwide. Currents support and assist ocean life, but currents also cannot discriminate in what it is carrying and spreading. The viewer may see the beauty in the ocean currents, but then notes how the water seems tainted. Perhaps the hawksbill is swimming away from the currents, but also towards the ray of light. This first piece is called Dreamer, and it embodies the freedom I so long for in life, but sometimes feel like I don't have. I look at what is happening around the country and I feel trapped, feeling as if my life is not my own to live. Many people, other forces of the universe, push and pull at me, controlling my future without a say. I look at politicians having control of issues that affect large groups of people other than themselves. I see destruction of Mother Nature around us as higher-ups continue to exploit the resources around us. I see those in the government having a say in who can love and marry who, and having a decision over what we can and cannot do to our own bodies. And while I can't change everything, I feel like I'm slowly losing control of anything that happens in my life. This piece is called Drink Up, and I wanted to represent the parallel of the use of alcohol. While some people use the excuse of being drunk to justify their behavior, those feelings often stem from somewhere. Alcohol can make feelings more intense, or make the world appear distorted. Others may feel in a way that it provides more clarity, and where they realize feelings that they had all along. The origami snake represents deception, where alcohol obscures your real reality. The owl in the background is the hidden truth behind the drunken state. And finally, the mirror takes more of a literal meaning, representing how alcohol can sometimes be a reflection of one's truest self at times. A little side note, I kind of took this piece, I took inspiration of this phrase. I don't know if you guys have heard it before, but basically a phrase that says, "Drunk talk is sober thoughts out loud." And it just really resonated with me, and that's what prompted me to make this piece in the first place. This next piece is called Fish Out of Water. There's not really much of a deep meaning to it besides the fact that it is supposed to basically represent burnout, but I'll read what I put in my Instagram description. This piece is about feeling out of place with your position in life. It embodies the feeling of how one desperately wants to fit in, or more commonly, stand out and be remembered, yet they feel so burned out from mounting responsibilities. This uncertainty in life can make you feel out of place and unsure of yourself, or, as they said in the title, a fish out of water. This painting is one of my favorites of this portfolio. It is one that resonates within me a lot, and the piece that inspired me to pursue a portfolio on the art of origami. This piece in particular is meant to symbolize the suffocating feeling of wanting to open up and spill your feelings to someone, to have that self-disclosure. However, the inability to identify what exactly is happening within yourself holds you back from being able to open up. While you want to so badly tell people everything, a part of you also values the privacy you really have. Social media these days is a window to see into people's lives, but it also has a way of becoming invasive and digging up secrets you wish you could be buried again. This piece is meant to highlight the complexities of telling people your true mental health state from every angle. The lone paper crane inside the jar is meant to represent a part of yourself you wish to keep. However, you also wish to dump the single, lonely crane out to join the rest of the ones outside the jar to show everyone each unique color. This piece is titled Paint Me and Trust, and it represents the desire to find a romantic partner you can confide in and trust. People want so badly to fall hard and fast for someone and call them the one, even if there is a sense of falsity to the romance. It's meant to represent the early stages of falling in love, the honeymoon phase, where both sides in the relationship love each other entirely without caring for the truth of it. But when the illusion finally fades away and you're left with them, you're faced with the decision whether you want to continue the relationship or break it off. This piece is titled Light of My Life, and this is what it's about. While there is beauty in solitude, sometimes it can feel isolating and lonely. I saw a beautiful passage somewhere describing the dye inside a marble ball as I was searching for objects to symbolize loneliness. no matter how many marble balls there may be around each other, it doesn't change the fact that each die is still alone inside. I'm worried that life is only going to continue to move along while I'm stuck in this in-between moment of living in the past and wanting to move on to the future. Even though I'm surrounded by friends and family, I worry that as the years go on, they will start to move on and live their own lives. They will eventually grow up, get married, and have responsibilities of their own. They will check in every so often, maybe once or twice a year, but they have their own priorities. And even though I'm an adult myself, I sometimes still feel so much like a child. I'm fearful of entering my next relationship, should I ever find anyone else, because I'm afraid that it will end up in shambles. But most of all, I'm afraid that I will be so cautious approaching any kind of relationship in the future that it will inevitably lead to this loneliness that I'm so fearful of, that I will be so afraid to fall in love again, that it leads me to never falling in love, ever. People always tell you that finding a romantic partner is not something that defines you, that it shouldn't be your top priority, but my fear of dying alone is so consuming that sometimes I wonder how people are content with not having met their person yet. This piece is meant to symbolize the deep-rooted fear I have of dying alone, but it's also meant to show the beauty of being in solitude at times. Looking into the future now, I'm tentative and nervous, but hopeful. I'm looking into my future with an open mind, finally forcing myself to move on from moments in the past I can't change. And I'm looking into my future again with an open heart that may or may not ever find love again, but this time I'm accepting of it. This piece is a self-portrait, and it's a reflection of myself, both looking at the flaws I see in me, as well as the beautiful characteristics I have. Each item has a special meaning to me, whether it's something that represents me in a good or bad way, or something that I love. It's meant to show the parallels of being human, that we are perfect and imperfect in our own ways. Whether you decide to look at it in a positive way, or if you decide to look for the flaws it may represent in me, I encourage you to look at this piece thoughtfully. The title of this whole collection is named In Loving Memory, and this installation is a triptych, 3 pieces meant to be displayed together. Each piece highlights the stages of people's reactions to suicide while simultaneously reflecting my frustrations and fears surrounding the topic. The first stage is the initial shock. Even with depression becoming a teen epidemic, it's still a hard pill to swallow when someone commits suicide. There's a sense of mutual respect for the person, regardless of what kind of person they were. It gives people the opportunity to reflect not just on the event that has happened, but reflect on themselves and the impact they have on other people. The second stage is called Crocodile Tears. When someone committed suicide a couple years ago in my school, there was a balloon release being held in their honor. With phones making a regular appearance these days, this was naturally an event that people wanted to film and post. Viewing people's posts, the first thing I noticed was not the balloons being released, but the sea of phones in the air filming this moment. While there is the desire to capture the moment forever, there's also beauty of being in the moment. I could not help but feel that people were being insincere, as I heard many people at my school trying to find reasons to relate themselves to the event, such as, "Oh, I had a Snapchat streak with them," or "I had a class with them in middle school." I felt frustrated that people who hardly knew them, disliked them even, were faking sympathy to make the event about themselves. And while I believe that some people out there were truly distraught, I can say for certain that I witnessed many crocodile tears. The third stage is moving on. Inevitably, while death is a heavy and unfortunate thing, life does keep moving forward. People for a while will be remorseful, wondering if they could have done anything different. But as time moves on, so do people. We will get caught up in our own lives, our own problems, and while the memory of the deceased person remains in the back of people's minds, they too have other priorities and things to think about. This next piece is called Perceptions of Love. This year has taught me that some people that you love the most can hurt you in the most unimaginable ways. When I initially thumbnailed this piece, I was angry and bitter over a close person that betrayed me and those close to me. The initial intent of making this piece was out of spite, but I had set the idea to the side for a while. As time passed, so did the meaning of the piece when I finally decided to follow through with it. The idea behind the piece was exploring the complexity of love. I took this event and used it to reflect on my past and current relationships. Sometimes no matter how much you love someone, the situation you are in is the reason you break apart. Sometimes love can blind people from seeing past flaws. Sometimes relationships don't work out because you're the reason for its interpersonal conflict. And sometimes promises that were made in the moment all of a sudden are forgotten once the event has passed. Other times, your partner is the one making the relationship difficult. While there's no clear-cut way to define which side always comes out as the bad guy, growing up is having the ability to recognize when you are the problem and when things are not entirely your fault. It all depends on your perception of love. This next piece is called The Deceitful Trinity, and it could be controversial to some, but it is based on personal experiences. Over the years, I've been cautious about religion, seeing how it has not brought more love around the world, but more corruption and hate than anything. Being 8 years old and being told by a classmate I was going to hell for not owning a Bible was certainly my first bad experience, to say the least. I later found out I wouldn't, but that's not relevant to the story. This piece is meant to exemplify the irony that some of the most religious people that I've met are some of the cruelest. It makes me frustrated how people use religion these days to justify their prejudices and biases, such as shunning gay marriages, yet preaching to non-religious people to love your neighbor. When I made this piece, I was thinking of two people in my lifetime, one person who went to church and one who did not. Person A was hateful towards those who did not conform to religion, but they were known to be deceitful to others for many other reasons. Person B did not attend church, yet they were kind and lived a life trying to be the best person they could be. If you put these two people side by side, I would have guessed that person B would be the religious one. Yet that was not the case. That is not to say all religious people are malicious, however. I have met plenty of religious people that are very kind and down to earth, but seeing the world around me now on the internet, it makes me fearful of just how much religion can affect our views of the world. This next piece is titled Pieces of Him. COVID was a difficult time for many reasons, but the biggest reason for me was the loss of relationships. The particular relationship that inspired this piece was one that was definitely strained due to COVID and inevitably led to its end. For the longest time, I mourned over this relationship that no longer existed and was also very unhappy of how things ended, with how many things were left unsaid. I was stuck between wanting to wait for them and wanting so badly to move on and forget. But it's normal to have moments of missing someone from your past, even if life has inevitably moved on. Missing someone does not mean that you're still hung up on them, just that old memories and feelings can resurface. This piece is recognizing and being honest with those feelings, and it symbolizes how I've worked, and in a way, am still kind of working through those unresolved emotions. It resembles how I've come to terms with those things and have accepted the outcome, no longer bitter of those emotions. And most of all, it has allowed me to reflect on my past mistakes and move forward. I understand now that some things are better left untouched, even when I so badly want to address them and change things. But you can't keep being stuck in the past while the world around you continues to move forward. And looking at the people around me now, I see pieces of him in every one of my friends. Whether it's how he can make me laugh or how they smile at me, it's there. The love is there. COVID has definitely resulted in a loss of relationships around me, but it's also rekindled old ones that faded away, and it's also giving me new ones, and I'm happier than I ever have been. Anyway, there's my portfolio. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So this next section is just going to be discussing areas where I think the portfolio may have gone wrong and why I got the score that I did. But yeah, I posted a reel like a couple weeks ago about my score and just showing some of my artwork, and I'm just going to read off of the description just on my computer. So that's what I'm looking down at right now. Getting a 3 on my AP art portfolio was quite a humbling experience, to say the least. Was I upset? Surprisingly, not as much as I thought I would be. Maybe I'm being stuck up, but I truly believe I deserved a higher score. I waited the entire summer in anticipation for my score, hoping that I would at least get a 4, but foolishly thinking I could get a 5, which, pause in the description, definitely not a 5 portfolio, but I think I should have gotten a 4 at least. But yeah, I sat at breakfast that day wondering where it all went wrong, and here's where I think they got me. The written evidence, College Point only gives you 600 characters, so that counts punctuation and spaces to explain the ideas behind your portfolio. That is only a few sentences, and as a result, I felt like I had to cut out a lot of important sentences that explain my thought processes going into the portfolio. Because of this, I truly believe that this is where they may have docked me the most, because one of the categories that they score is how well visual elements of your portfolio connect with your ideas. And I feel as if they may have not understood what exactly my portfolio was about, because I could not go properly in depth like I wanted to. You can't tell me that when you look at my portfolio, you would look at that and think, oh, this is totally about dying alone, or this is about suicide. So I don't think my ideas really came across, and maybe that's where they docked me. Another category I think I could have gone wrong was experimentation. I did experiment with different media, and I even experimented with various types, sizes, and shapes of canvas, but reflecting on it now, I think that I just did not have as much experimentation as they had wanted. Realistically, while I experimented with different media, I for the most part stayed in my comfort zone and went with my most comfortable media, which is acrylic paint. I didn't take as big of a risk as I could have, such as trying to be unique and using otherwise difficult perspectives, which in the comment section, actually a couple people mentioned maybe where they could have docked me was because of like my negative space, but I'll get into that in a second. But anyway, they could have just thought my portfolio lacked depth and imagination, since I only rendered the main subjects. While College Board says they don't favor any particular style, it is almost impossible for there not to be some sort of bias. When you look at the portfolios that score well, they are the ones that are rendered at the top level realistically. I'm gonna pause here again before I ruffle some feathers and people start squawking at me. I should have really rephrased it and said something along the lines of, when I see people posting a lot on social media, it's really like realistic portfolios. And I'm not saying that they don't like stylized portfolios, because I know that stylized portfolios have gotten good scores, but I don't know, whenever I see people post about their good scores all the time, it's always like the hyper-realistic portraits and just stuff like that. But yeah, I would love to see other portfolios that scored well and maybe didn't fit that category, because I feel like that's not advertised as much. Anyway, the goal of my portfolio wasn't to make images look like a photograph, but rather look like a piece of art, and I felt it gave my art personality, and it would remind the audience that a human is in fact behind the painting. It all boils down to the fact that I just simply did not have what they were looking for, and that's perfectly alright. The people behind the scores don't know me personally, and they don't know the time, effort, and meaning behind each piece that I presented. And perhaps they would have appreciated it more if they maybe did know a little bit more. Art is subjective, and unlike any other AP exams, it's not a clear-cut, one sole answer to it. I graduated with 100% in AP Art my second semester of high school, and that itself shows that my score from College Board really is just that, a score. My teacher herself even told me that she had a feeling I would score well, and it's the people that I know best that I want to impress the most, so I wish every future AP Art student good luck on their portfolios, and I just want to let you know that their opinions don't matter. So that's the end of the description of my reel, but the more I'm reflecting on it, there are some other areas where it could have been weaker. Like I mentioned kind of ish in the description, the negative space. A couple people mentioned maybe it was the fact that it was negative space. I took a lot of inspiration from artists such as 𝓙𝓮𝓼 and Patty Malika, and I really liked that simplistic feeling of having artwork where it was just a plain background and the subject was just the main thing in the picture. But I do know that maybe that's not everyone's taste, because even when we were doing critiques in my class, a lot of people were asking like, are you gonna do anything in the background? I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I personally really like it, but maybe they just didn't really like it as much. I do know some people in the comments said that the lack of background could just make it seem like it was not really imaginative or inventive. So I do think negative space. And the composition, I just feel like I didn't really experiment with different perspectives. It kind of was a lot of the same composition. Some people mentioned maybe the fact that it was like the repetitive subject matter, like the little motif. I could see it going both ways. I could see it maybe getting me points off, but I also have a hard time believing that it might be that, just because College Board really wants it to be a cohesive piece that looks like a family of art. I really tried to stay with the same subject matter, which is origami. So it would have been a little weird if I had, objects that didn't have origami in it. But yeah, the fact that I didn't have a background and like kind of the use of negative space and like not really creative composition all the time, honestly that could have been where they docked me as well, because I could see that. I would say maybe 3 is fair for that. Another thing that it could be was maybe just the fact that it was still lives. I did have a comment that said something along the lines of, still lives show a foundational skill, but it doesn't show much creativity for an AP art portfolio, which is kind of needed. So honestly that could be it too. I think I covered most of it where I think it could have gone wrong. I honestly don't think it's the quality of work, because I kind of did it in a stylized way, and honestly the stylized version of my paintings I would think is actually a pretty good quality. I think it is a mix of written evidence, experimentation, and maybe just the composition itself, like with the negative space and the lack of background. But yeah, I'd be open to any other suggestions as well. That's honestly where I think they could have docked me the most. I'm just gonna finish off this video basically telling you guys the point of this video. I know there's gonna be haters that are going to be like, I can see why you got a 3 and think I'm just making this video because I'm pissed off about my score and fishing for compliments. I had this one comment that basically provided no constructive criticism, and it was like, this portfolio is a 3, see examples of 4s and 5s. For clarification. So I kind of waited on it for a couple days before I responded, because I wanted to be respectful, and especially given that they gave no constructive criticism, I was trying my best to acknowledge what she said may have been right, but also kind of bring in my point of view. So I'm just gonna put my response here. You can pause and read it if you want. But then seconds after I made that reply, she said something to that response basically saying I was arrogant for blaming my score on the fact that it was taste, even though it was just the lack of my ability. Then she said something like, I hate to be so blunt, but your art is just not even at the level to be a 4, 5, or even a 6. She then goes on to say, you shouldn't have a public art account if all you want to do is brag about yourself and complain about others. So I'm gonna stop right here, because if I wanted to brag about myself, I would not post my score, trust me. And as for the complaining about others, if she's talking about College Board, I'm just not afraid to call out that there are some weaker things about College Board. If you're gonna take into account written evidence as a lot of the score, you should give us more grace and give us a little more space to talk about our art. Like, that's just the truth of the matter. I mean, my response may have kind of provoked that, and maybe she was thinking I was in denial. And based on the fact that she didn't provide any constructive criticism, that's why I just kind of assumed that she was just not really a fan of my art, and that's why she made that comment. Had she provided some sort of form of constructive criticism, my reply probably would have been a lot different, and not really at the fact that it just wasn't her taste, because I honestly just thought she made that comment because she did not like my art. But anyway, she then mentioned something about being immature and arrogant for arguing with people in the comments, even though that's literally what she's doing with me right now. And I also even go out of my way to acknowledge like constructive feedback and saying, yeah, that's actually true, that could be why. But yeah, she deleted it like 1 second after she had made it, so I think she realized how she came off. What really bothered me about the comment was not even what it actually said, but the fact that the person completely missed the point of the video. I think what appalled me the most was the fact that this person was an English teacher, so she was making a quick and hateful judgment about a literal 18-year-old without even knowing them, and basically telling them to f off, get off the internet, and telling me to get out of my so-called high horse that I created for myself. Another reason why I think this comment was kind of made out of spite and hatred is that being an English teacher, at least my English teachers always told me to be very careful about what you say because the tone can come off condescending or, you know, with the wrong message. So I'm assuming being an English teacher should be very intentional with her language, but that's just my 2 cents. Thinking back on it, the 3 could be deserved in some sense, whereas like areas of negative space, composition, I didn't really experiment with composition. But as for like the actual quality of the work, I do think that that deserved a higher score. But the point of this video isn't to complain about College Board or my score. The point of it is to show that you're just not always gonna get a score that you expect. You always see videos on YouTube about people posting how they got 5s on their portfolios, but you never see videos about people that just maybe got little lesser scores than that. I kind of wanted this video to serve as a reality check because I don't want people to be discouraged just because of a score. I would have made this art regardless of whether I got a 3 or a 5, and I'm happy with it. And I truly believe that the quality isn't bad, it's just maybe not what they were looking for. This year was definitely a rocky one, to say the least. Definitely fell to the lowest point that I've ever felt in my life. But this year it's also turned around immensely, and I'm feeling the happiest I've ever been in years. This portfolio is essentially a journey of self-discovery. It's kind of meant to capture the state of my mental health when it was at its lowest and how it turned around completely. By the end of the portfolio, you can kind of see how the meanings seem to become a lot happier and more accepting. A lot of this portfolio was very intentional. Every object in each piece is very purposeful. I did deep research in the meanings of different animals and objects for this origami aspect. And yeah, each object represents a little part of the story I'm trying to convey. What resonates really with me with this portfolio is that the style draws you in and it looks very appealing from the beginning, but when you hear the meaning of it, I don't think people can guess it, but I think it kind of encourages people to think on a deeper level. But yeah. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm really close to 400 subscribers if you guys would like to subscribe. But yeah, I'll see you guys next video. Bye!